This has been a lot of fun, and I got to tell you, I like being here in the Blue Room, where I've got all my things, and I really enjoy just talking in long format and telling you these stories. And the best part about it is that every once in a while we're going to lighten this thing up. But I'd like to end every one of these episodes with a segment I like to call, which I stole from the Naval Institute, so forgive me. Nobody asked me, but listen, when I was a Navy chief, our job was to speak frankly, clearly, and plainly. And I didn't care whether you were the commander in chief or whether you were, brand new boot sailor. If something was screwed up or something that I felt that I really needed to say out there, the typical comment from a Navy chief is, well, nobody asked me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So in this segment, I'm going to give you a quote of the day because there's been a lot of discussions about the subject of toxic masculinity. And when you talk about a podcast, it's got a name like Black Man Spy, right? And its real actual name is Black Man Spy. And I get confronted by all these images of guys like Andrew Tate and the idiots that you see on the right, like Ben Shapiro, right? Wimpiest guy on the planet, I swear to God, right? Buys a piece of wood at Home Depot and takes it out in a plastic bag, then you know that there's an issue out there. And the issue that's happening is it's not a question of manliness being in doubt these days, all right? It's humanliness. And what I want to do is I want to end on a good quote. Something that you as the listener can take away. It's gender neutral. It doesn't matter whether you're a man, woman, or a Marine. Okay? But what I do want to do is leave you with something that you can think about, something we can talk about. And today, it's why I have a wine room, a library, and a gun room. Now that might sound a little fanciful because you can say, Malcolm, I live in a one-bedroom apartment. How can I have a wine room, a library, and a gun room? Well, first, anybody can have a wine room. All you need is a wine rack, and then all you need is some wine, like the wine that I have here, which is from EOD Cellars. This is from the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Foundation. In another episode of Top Secret Storytime, I will tell you how U.S. Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal Mobile Unit 16 pretty much kept me from blowing up on a landmine. And I will show you that mine. And the next is a bottle of the French Foreign Legion, Légion Étrangère, Cuvée de Sans Ans, right? Sorry, 60 years, 60 ans, and of 60 years. Now, why, Malcolm, are we talking about wine? Because quote of the day comes from Rudyard Kipling. And I love Rudyard Kipling. I'm a member of the Kipling Society, which is a worldwide society that studies Rudyard Kipling's writings. And one of Rudyard Kipling's best lines is that a man can never have too much of wine, books, or ammunition. Now, where I came from in Ukraine, that's a truism. And despite what some of these yahoos on the internet who say that I never carried a magazine of ammunition, I actually carried 10 magazines of ammunition wherever I went, right? 4 on my thighs, 2 on my hips, and, 1 in the magazine of 1 in the weapon, and then 3 to 4 more on my chest rig. That was a minimum. So Kipling's comment made me think, well, how do you incorporate this into life? Well, I'm also a gun collector and I'm a long-range target shooter. I like doing it. I do it for enjoyment. I do it for the skill of reading the wind, the air, the calculating the range and becoming as precise a shooter as I can. I haven't fired a civilian match or weapon in the last year and a half because when I was shooting in Ukraine, I had an M14 sniper rifle. I was using a thermal optic, or I was shooting the Barrett MRAD sniper weapon system in 338 Lapua. So needless to say, in that world, a man could not have enough ammunition. In the United States, your ammunition might be your voice. might be your voice to stand up in the defense of democracy, which no matter when you tune into this show, you're going to hear me talking about standing up and defending democracy. Certainly, you also need to read. It was the famous author, Fran Lebowitz, who said, "Think before you speak, read before you think." And I love quoting that because, you really do need to read. I have a personal library of over 2,000 books that belongs to either myself or my late wife, in English and in French. And it's important that you gain a base of knowledge so that when you're having those discussions, all right, somebody mentioned Socrates or Aristotle, you're not confused as to who they are or what they stood for. And finally, for those of you who do drink, it's good to drink wine. Now, not too much of it. In my house, we have a 2-glass limit. Now, that may sound a little over the top, but once I went for a physical with a British sports physiologist, and when I was living over in the Middle East, and he gave me a full physical assessment, and on there was a statement of how much you drank, and it said 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. And I was like, ooh, okay. And then there was blank other. And I put 1 to 4. And when it came time for the face-to-face physical, the guy goes, "Oh, I see. You said you have 1 to you're a modest drinker, a low-level drinker. You drink 1 to 4 glasses of beer or wine per day." And I was like, "Per day? That's per week." And he goes, "Per week? Well, that's less than 3/4 of a glass per day." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, that's a teetotaler." He didn't have a factor for it. He was calculating it on the basis of how the English drink. I do not drink like the English drink. I drink for pleasure. I drink for the sensation and the taste. And I've come to like wine. My wife was French Canadian. She used to make wine. And we've traveled all over the world, and I've tasted wine. I've also tasted whiskeys and other hard liquors and Schlivovitz and we're going to be getting in a little bit into that when we do our little favorite spy bar segment further on into the podcast series. But, it's good that a man, if you think about it, wine could be any beverage of his choice. When I'm not drinking at all, I like sparkling water with a twist in it. And not because Andrew Tate thinks rich people drink sparkling water. It's because it gives you a bubbly sensation and you don't think about alcohol. You don't have to. I mean, there were years in my military career where I just didn't drink. So that being said, Rudyard Kipling's quotes of "a man can never have too much red wine, too many books, or too much ammunition" sort of fits into my lifestyle. And I hope that for some of you that it meant something too. But don't forget, ammunition does not have to be bullets. It can be the righteousness that comes out of your own mouth. And with that, thank you for coming to this episode of Black Man Spot.